No worries, no worries. This session is all about solving case studies and cracking the most difficult ones. So just wait till the session starts, and I hope you'll gain something good out of it, and that will surely benefit you.
Yeah, I think ma'am has joined us and to the presenter. Yeah,
Hi everyone, am I audible?
yes, ma'am. Welcome to our session. And
Yeah,
just to
thank you so
introduce
much.
ma'am,
So sorry for the delay, guys. I had some network issues. Yeah.
yeah. So just to introduce ma'am, she is an EC engineer, I'm career coach and content creator, the founder at Zahra Records. Uh, she has delivered talks across India, and the talks had been more than 300. Also, she has impacted the lives of 5,000 plus working professionals. She is among the top 50 content creators in India by Graphy by an Academy, and also a part of the first cohort of the top 200 creators selected to be a part of LinkedIn Creator Accelerator program in India. We are really honored to have you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Akshay. Thank you for the humbling introduction. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me, and to the entire team of the Consulting Club at Hindu College for organizing this. I also want to let you all know that today's session, which is around how to ace case interviews and how to ace your cases, is going to be very, very action oriented, right? And the purpose is to make you very prepared with the kind of approach that you need to follow when it comes to being able to solve cases, right? Because this is not a very typical interview round that people go through. It's very specific to consulting firms only. And yeah, it's just not like any other interview, right? So there are certain do's, there are certain don'ts, there are certain tips and tricks that you should be aware of so that you can sail through these interviews and forge, into the field of consulting. So with that, I'll get started with the session. I'm going to keep it very interactive. So I would require you to interact with me from time to time as well. There will be questions that I will keep asking you from time to time. So I hope we have, I mean, can the participants put their responses in the chat if I ask them anything?
No, ma'am, actually, they can unmute themselves and we are moderating them. And
Oh, okay.
the ones who raise
So
hand.
the chat is disabled, is it?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay, no issues. Fine. So in that case, we'll try to then follow the process wherein you guys can unmute yourself. I'm okay with that. I also asked that because we're going to be solving a case together as well. So at that time, when we are solving the case, I mean, obviously we can't do it on chat, but then people can maybe raise their hands or unmute themselves, in a particular order, and then we can solve the case together. No worries. So to begin with, the first thing that I want to ask all of you is typically what is it that you understand? Why do you think? What do you think, according to you, is the purpose for someone to give you a case study during an interview, and why do they even ask you to solve it? Basically, my question is that what do you think is the recruiter trying to assess when they give you a case study and they tell you to solve it, right? So if anyone wants to answer, you can unmute yourself and let me know. I think Sonal has raised her hand. Rahul.
Uh, Ma'am.
Yeah,
So I
Sonal.
think the interview panel usually tries to assess the thinking and the structured approach of a candidate.
Okay, fair enough. Anybody else wants to add on to her answer?
Ma'am, they are trying to analyze that when you are put in a different situation, so how will you react and how will you solve that problem?
Okay, yeah.
In
Anybody
my
else?
case interviews, they were just trying to know about the problem solving abilities of the candidates.
Right. Perfect. Anybody else? One last person. If you have something additional to add on to what the three of them have covered. Okay. Anybody?
So they want to see how innovative we are.
By innovative, could you elaborate a little more on that? When
It
you
means
say
like how we are reacting on a particular case, like what are the situation we are adopting.
correct. Okay, great. Thanks. Thanks everyone for your answers and for being participative. I think you have obviously more or less covered the gist of why is it that a case interview is taking place right during your interviews. Now, what we understand is number one, you need to understand that when you're given a case, it's a hypothetical situation. It's a business case study that's given to you around an organization, around any kind of institution, hypothetical. Why they give you that business case problem or situation is primarily for three reasons. Okay. One is they want to understand that when I give you something which is out of the box or something you've never heard of, or a situation that you as a student have never been in, right? Because you are not there cracking $1 billion deals or taking care of sales of any department, right? Or of a big company. So what they're trying to judge is what if I give this person a curveball question, and when I put them in that situation, what's the first instant reaction? How spontaneous are they to not be taken aback by a question which might not necessarily anyway have a perfect answer, and how do they react to it? That's number one, the most immediate thing that they test. Second thing that they're trying to understand is that now that they've given a problem, they're obviously looking for you to solve the problem. But what they're looking at even the more is the approach you follow to solve the problem. Always. The approach, the steps that you take, and someone I think Sonal in the beginning mentioned the structured approach is what they look at. How do you break down your problem? What measures do you take into consideration? What assumptions do you make? Everything. So basically having a structured approach towards solving the problem. That's the second thing. Third thing that they look at is your presence of mind and effective communication skills. Why presence of mind? Because aware and consciously there to be able to extract the information from the recruiter. The recruiter is just going to give you a problem statement of 2 lines, 3 lines, max 10 lines, right? He's not going to, he or she will not give you the entire information ever, right? Nobody does. Now they want to understand that where are you? Are you present in that moment? What are the kind of questions you will ask to get to your answer? So are you present there? So your presence of mind. Second is fine. Understanding the question is one thing. Telling them we can do this, we can do that is another thing. Okay. Coming up with frameworks and solutions is another thing. But a lot of people can think very well logically. They can structure, they solve problems, they're meant for it. But can they communicate and translate that thought in words? That in the pressurizing moment in those 30 to 45 minutes when you're given a problem statement, a recruiter is right across the table. In that tensed environment, are you able to effectively communicate? These are my thoughts. This is what I'm doing. This is my logic behind using this formula, this framework, taking these steps, assuming this. That is important. So these are just three of the most important things. Everything else that you also participated in is valid and it is applicable, right? So let's get started with the session. I've got a presentation prepared. Let me just start sharing my screen. Give me a second. Okay, entire screen share. Can you guys see my screen, by the way, at this point? Okay, perfect.
Yes.
I'll just let's go to slideshow mode then, if you can see me and see the screen. Perfect. So obviously that's a little bit about me. Let's move forward then. So let's start with understanding that how do you actually solve case interviews, right? I'm sure all of us know what case interviews are. I'm obviously not here to give you definition of it, but what I can tell you is that in my understanding of having worked with a big four for nearly about 3 years and having prepared for consulting interviews myself, what I understand of case interviews is, like I told you, it's a hypothetical business situation which can be pertaining to sales, operations, people, technology, or any other vertical, as a matter of fact, that builds or which are the different arms of any organization. So the problem can be anywhere. The problem can be the company is not being able to meet the sales targets. The problem can be the revenue has gone down. The problem can be that the technology they're using is outdated, because of which the manual power that's needed, the manpower, sorry, that's needed has increased. The problem can be that they're not able to hire the right people, maybe. So the problem can be at the people and operations and sales, whatever, tech. But what you do as a consultant is, and what you do in that moment as a case interview solver is, that you are going to look at that situation from the angle of changing the how, from the what to the how. So a consultant's mindset is always concentrated towards the how and not the what. You have to change that mindset. It's called a mindset shift to become a consultant. So generally, when you're given a problem, the first thing we think is, what is the problem, right? What is this telling me? What? We think about the what. it takes us some time to go to the how. Okay, now we know what the problem is. How are you going to solve it? So you have to be solution oriented and not problem oriented. Obviously, you have to understand the problem, but the concentration or the weightage has to be towards the how. How are you planning to solve it? So when you're given a business situation, firstly, be very aware and listen to it, right? The case study that's given to you. Please understand that this model or this interview round is conducted to give you a sense or a taste or a flavor of how a typical consulting project looks like. When you become a consultant, it takes about a minimum, any, the smallest of the smallest projects I've seen, at least in my tenure at KPMG, has been at least 3 to 4 months minimum. And then the project that I was working in, I remember I worked in that project for 2 years. Right from the day I joined to the day I left, I was working in that project. So that project has been going on since 2 years, and even after I left. So these projects are complex, they are lengthy, right? These real-time Fortune 500 companies, when they come to US, with they tell you that we want your help, and when they come to consulting firms, these are not small day-to-day problems. These are complex problems. They invest money, and when I talk about money, it's in crores, it's in multi-billion dollars. And if they're doing that, they expect you to work on it across the length and the breadth. Okay. So what this case interview round tries to do is those uh, you know 40 to those 4 months to 2 years, or whatever the length of your project is condensed into a 30 to 40 minute simulation of how your job will be as a consultant. That's the flavor it's trying to give you. Okay. Now, what are a few skills that are tested in case interviews, right? Obviously, problem structuring. How do you structure the problem, right? How do you understand the problem? The logical reasoning. What reasoning are you applying? How are you thinking? Are you thinking about it analytically? Is there a logical backing to anything that you're stating, right? Analysis. How are you analyzing things? The ability to draw conclusions from data. It's not just about being good with mathematics and formulas and doing calculations. No, case interviews are about being able to read through and between the data. So if you're given a particular problem, you're given a statement, you're given some facts, just certain facts. How can you look beyond and beneath the facts to be able to draw insights, right? How can you look at a particular statement and certain data and then understand and analyze and understand the impact it's creating in that situation? So you have to be able to draw conclusions, not just be good at calculations. The ability to synthesize or communicate your conclusions. I think the last point that I told you, which is being good with maths, being understanding the problem is one thing, but communicating that during an interview is another thing. That's exactly what this last skill is. That do you have the ability to synthesize, firstly condense everything that you've understood, and then communicate your conclusions to the audience. That's very important. Okay. And obviously they look at multiple other skills, but these are some of the major skills that they look at when you solve case interviews. Okay. Now with that, let me tell you a little bit about the different types of case interview questions that you can come across in any typical case interview that takes place during consulting interview rounds at Big Fours, Big Threes, or any other consulting firms. Also, I'm sure you all know the Big Threes, which is McKinsey and Company, Boston Consulting Group, Bain and Company. The Big Fours are KPMG, Deloitte, PwC, and EY. But the world is not limited there, right? People obviously know of the Big Fours and the Big Threes because they have a certain brand value or whatever you want to equate it with. But trust me, there are so many other prestigious and very amazing consulting firms that exist that people don't know about. Whether it's an Oliver Wyman, whether it's an ADL, whether it is a Praxis Global, ZS Associates, whether it's your IT consulting firms like Accenture, TCS, Cognizant, Infosys, they all have got consulting verticals, by the way, right? Dalberg, as a matter of fact. So there are and 80 Kearney. There are many other consulting firms that are top notch. It's just that people are not aware of this field, anyways. In India, trust me, people are still very, very naive to the concept of management consulting, and naive and new both. Because software development, becoming a web developer, getting into tech, all of that is still okay. There are so many opportunities, people talk about it. People don't talk about management consulting, and that's unfortunately the truth. At least in the past 1 year, still there is some more awareness. I've seen it myself 2 years back when I graduated. In my own college at BIT, we didn't have a consulting club. We never did. I think it's only this year that one of my juniors proposed that we should have a consulting club. That concept didn't even exist. When I started taking these sessions right after passing out, when people were calling me, I think during the after the pandemic, after 6 months, I started seeing these consulting clubs also being there. Yes, in IITs and other firms, institutions, they were always there. But the wave has come now where people have understood, oh, management consulting is also a career path or a domain that you can take. So the point is, it's new, but you need to just, understand and align your interests. Now, what are the different types of case interview questions that you can be asked, irrespective of the kind of consulting firm you're interviewing at, by the way? Generally, typically, they'll fall under any one of these. Profitability cases are one category, growth cases, any new product cases. If you want to launch a new product in a market, enter a new market, market entry cases, and new product cases, typically similar. Pricing cases, you've also got a typical, case study type, which is called guesstimates. Okay. Now, as the name suggests, guessing and estimating guesstimates. So, what you do in guesstimates is you basically estimate something via the method of guessing. Now, these questions have no typical answer. Nobody knows the answer. Your recruiter themselves don't know the answers. If I ask you a question like, um, for example, how many Samsung phones are sold in a typical Samsung store in a city, or the city also in Bombay? In a typical area, let's say I say Goregaon in Bombay, I give you that specification also. Would you still know the number of Samsung phones an electronic shop or a Samsung store or outlet is able to sell typically every day? Nobody knows it. Your interviewer also doesn't know it. But what's the intention behind asking that question? It's to understand. Like I said, if I ask you a question where you'll be taken aback and you'll be like, "Oh, kya puch liya? What is this? How will I know?" How do you react? Are you calm? Are you composed? Do you take your time to clear your thoughts, clear your head, take a piece of pen and paper, structure your thoughts? What do you do? That's the first thing they'll notice. Second thing that they want to understand is, while we're not looking at the answer and people are mistaken that a case interview is all about the final answer or the figure or the number you give them. Not at all. I think the only way case interviews are similar to your technical coding rounds that are conducted by the top tech giants like Amazon, Flipkart, Google, Shaw, Microsoft is that even in those coding rounds, understand that the concentration is not on whether you have to pass all the test cases and get your code run. Obviously, that's important. But trust me, if your approach was not correct and you've just done it, somehow it won't matter. Your steps that you've taken, the logical approach that you've followed matters more than the final test cases being passed. Because when you'll be called in an interview, they'll go back to your code and judge that. Similarly, in a case interview, it's not about the final answer. I'm not saying it's completely insignificant. But trust me, you're not going to get judged based on whether you got the final answer or not. The steps you took to come to the final answer are important. Were they correct? Were your assumptions correct? Were you thinking with the right mind or not? If that is correct, you will get selected, even if the final answer is a little here and there than what the answer should be. Okay. So please understand that, and that's what happens in guesstimates mostly, because they are a little heavy on calculations and numbers. But more than that, the fact that you cannot really get to the root answer, the only reason they ask you those questions is to understand that what do you know about such things, how will you put yourself in a structured framework and solve the case. That's it. So should we take up this initiative kind of problems are basically problems like wherein, let's say, a firm is to kind of make a decision whether they should do something or not, or they should get into a new venture or not, and they put such cases. It's very rare that it's asked, but it's one category. Mergers and acquisitions are very commonly asked, especially if you are interviewing for financial consulting roles. Okay, so then M&A cases come into picture. Competition, I wouldn't say is necessarily a case interview type, but it's just that the focus of these cases is purely on how an organization can do better than the competition or than their rivals, etc. Totally unique or unconventional cases, I think they are really, uh, I would say important to work upon, because a lot of people don't work on them. They're just like puzzles, right? So you'll be given a situation which you would have never expected. They are not typical questions that can be formed using, that can be solved using frameworks or just even applying basic knowledge as such of mathematics. It's more about your logical reasoning here. So questions like, if you were left in a jungle, let's say, and the next morning you just get up and you realize your memory is gone. You're just brainwashed and you don't remember anything, how you came here. uh, you don't have anything on you, your phone's not there, no maps, nothing, nobody around you. How would you walk your way back out to, a civilized place, or to find the road? Basically, how do you get out of the jungle? How do you find a way out of the jungle? That's like, I think this was a question uh, that was asked by McKinsey to one of their consultants during an interview. That's what I remember one of my seniors had told me as well. So the point is that these are just questions that have no backing or anything. It's just anything that they can ask you, right? A very random, unique situation. So those are the different kinds of case interview questions. Before we go forward, I'll just quickly come back. Give me 1 second. Just want to check. Do you guys have any questions for me at this point? Anything that you want to know? Anything that you want to clarify, or should I continue? You can let me know. I mean, feel free to let me know if there are any questions at this point. I'm more than happy to address them. If not, we'll obviously continue then. Maybe I'll just wait for 30 seconds for you to let me know. If there's anything that you want me to repeat, clarify, you can raise your hand.
The participants can unmute themselves and ask any queries if they have.
Sorry, Aditi.
Ma'am, this was for the participants that they can unmute themselves
Okay.
and ask any queries.
Okay, sure, sure. And if not, I mean, you can always let me know. I'll just continue. Okay. I'll assume that there aren't any questions at this point. No worries. If you have any later on also, we can continue, right? So just give me a second. Let me share my screen again. So with that, can we please have everyone muted if there are no questions? Thank you. Okay. Yeah. Perfect. So I think so a few tips before we go forward. There are two more topics that I'm going to cover before we actually solve the actual case. So I'll talk about things you should do, do's and don'ts, and then we'll talk about the different frameworks that exist. And then we are going to solve our first. We're going to solve the case, right? We'll come straight to the point because case interviews are not theoretical things. You need to practically put yourself in that situation. Only then do you learn. How do you stand out in a case interview? So, a few do's: ask clarifying questions. This is so important. The first thing that you need to do as soon as you're given a question is, like I told you, you won't be given complete information. You are the one who needs to extract the information from the interviewer. And you do that by asking smart questions. You do that by asking the right questions that lead you to an answer. So you obviously can't ask direct questions. So it's not like if you're given, like, let's say, a question wherein it's a pricing question, for example, pricing case interview, and you need to determine the cost at which a company should price their pen, right? That they're going to launch a new category of an elite pen, maybe that they're launching, which is a premium category, etc. You can't ask them that what should the price of the pen be, or can you give me a rough range of what you're looking at? Because then what's the case all about? What are you going to even solve? So the point is, you can't ask the obvious questions. You need to ask questions that lead you to that answer, right? You may want to ask that, are we planning to launch this pen only in the Indian market, or are we also tapping into foreign markets? What's the target audience that we are looking at, right? What's the USP in our product, all of that to come to a pricing. You can't ask what's the pricing of the pen in a pricing question, pricing case interview. So there's a fine line between taking the help of your interviewer to get to the answer and asking for the answer. If you ask for the answer, you'll never get help. If you ask the right questions to get to the answer, your interviewer will be more than willing to help you. A lot of people feel that they solve the case interviews or they crack case interview rounds. I always say this: no individual, whether they've cracked a McKinsey, a Bain and Company, or a Big Four, or any other consulting firm, they don't make it through those rounds alone. 50% of the work is done by the interviewer, always. 50% is done by you. If they don't lead you in the right direction, if they don't guide you, if they don't subtly give you hints, it's very difficult for anybody to solve a case. And that's the reality. That's why asking the right clarifying questions is important, because then they can help you, right? Then, because when you make, let's say if you're saying that I'm assuming India's population is 200 crores, for example, that's wrong. You're just assuming. Now they cannot tell you, hey, it's wrong. What they'll say is, I think this is a little overestimated, you might want to reconsider those figures. That's a subtle hint, but you will get that hint only when you're vocal about what you're thinking and what you're assuming, what you're presuming, and what you're planning to do. So always talk and think out loud in a case interview, no matter whether it's virtual, in person, a diary, or a piece of paper, and a pen is extremely important at all times when solving a case interview. You cannot do without it. You need to make your tree diagrams, your flow charts, do your basic, and you need to show it from time to time. It's a virtual interview. The interviewer and you have to be on the same page. They need to know what you're thinking, why you're thinking, what you're assuming, what you're neglecting, what are you probably not considering, so that they can redirect you wherever needed, right? So that's your job, so that they can certainly help you. Evaluate the data very carefully, obviously. Create evidence based conclusions, which means that it's not like you can't fluff anything, in the air. You can't. What you need to really do is you need to evaluate the data very carefully, and again back it up with evidence that this is what I've seen, this is what I've predicted, and this is what has happened according to the data in the past. So I'm, going forward with this conclusion. Create evidence based conclusions and evaluate your data correctly. That's done. Don't be really arrogant, don't be rude at times, when you feel that, I mean, obviously, every interview is different, but in case interviews, at times, you might feel like everything that you are, how do I put it? Everything that you're trying to suggest or everything that you're recommending is being put down by the recruiter at times, but all they're trying to do is maybe give you a hint and stuff. So don't try and take it in a negative way, right? And don't come up with random conclusions just to have an answer. They're smart enough to figure it out that if you're going to take them in that circular loop wherein you don't know what you're doing yourself, they'll just pick it up in a jiffy, because they've been doing this for a while and they understand people who are making, who are at least trying and logically solving something versus people who are just beating around the bush. So don't do that, right? Now let's talk about some important case frameworks. So firstly, what are case interview frameworks? These are basically blueprints, or I call them skeletons or structures that help you solve cases more efficiently. Is it compulsory to always use case interview frameworks to solve case interviews? The answer is no. But the point is that if you know, you should know about them, because at times when you're given cases and if you know about them and where they are applicable, and when you listen to the case statement, you'll be able to identify, can I actually fit in or plug in any of these case interviews and solve these cases? If the answer is yes, well and good, you'll at least have a structure in your head. Everything becomes more simpler, more condensed. If not, it's okay. So the point I'm trying to make is, no, not every case can be solved with a case framework. First, there are some cases where you have to build your own case interview framework, by the way. Such unique cases are also there where you will have to build your own formulas, your frameworks, all of that. So it's not applicable everywhere, but you should know them. So that the moment you listen to a question, you know, oh, can I apply BCG 2 by 2 matrix? Yes, no. Can I apply 4Ps? Can I apply the 3Cs? Can I apply the McKinsey 7S principle? You'll know all of that. So the first one is the BCG 2 by 2 matrix, wherein you can see on the x-axis you have the relative market share, on the y-axis you have market growth, right? And the four quadrants are basically dominated by the dogs, the cashing cows, the stars, and the question marks, right? How you read this 2 by 2 matrix is pretty simple. The dogs are basically low in relative market share and low in market growth. So it's increasing from, from left to right on the x-axis, and it's increasing from the bottom to the top on the y-axis. That's how you read it. So the stars have got a high market share and a high market growth, right? But the cashing cows have got a high market share but a low market growth. That's how you read it. Question marks have got a high market growth, but they've got a very low market share. Okay, so that's how you're going to basically read it. Now, the four P's are basically the four P's of marketing. You've got promotion, place, price, and I think I don't remember the. I think it's price, people, promotion.
Pro-
Uh, can someone
Product.
remind me?
Product.
Product, correct, correct. So it's product, people, price, promotion. Yes. Now coming to the three C's, you've got competition, customer, company, right? Again, the three C's are something you can utilize depending on whether it's applicable. It's not like you can use it particularly here. Four P's are generally used when it's like a marketing problem, right? And anything when you want to enter into a new market, also, in fact, you can use like the four P's at times. But three C's is it really is generally when you're doing competition based cases. I've shown you one category, competition cases. There you tend to use it. McKinsey 7S framework, wherein you've got your strategy, shared values, skills, structure, style, staff, systems. This is also something I think generally when you're talking about larger organizations and more around the HR and people management problems, it comes into picture there. But it's not restricted to that, right? Again, like I said, you'll have to understand the problem to know is this even applicable. Potter's five forces is like a model which genuinely can be used to evaluate the business model of any organization, MNC, startup, small business, whatever. Right? There's a Potter's. You can do a Potter's five forces on Zomato, on Swiggy, on Uber, on Google, anybody. So the point is, you're just taking five factors into consideration. You understand that what is the impact of the threat of new entrants on this organization, the threat of substitutes, internal competition or rivalry, suppliers bargaining power, and the customers bargaining power. How are these five forces contributing to this organization to thrive or to be where it is, basically? And you judge a business model that way using Potter's five forces. Profitability formula is like a golden formula. Any profitability case that you're given, and by the way, we're going to solve a profitability case only next. This is the formula that you will have to use. If you're solving a profitability case, you need to know this. This formula will be used at some or the other point, which is profit is equal to revenue minus cost. Simple formula. We learn it back in fifth or sixth grade, I think. Now, when you know profit is equal to revenue minus cost, you should also know revenue is obviously basically the volume of units that you are selling for whatever that product is into the price per unit, right? That's your revenue. Costs are also of two categories. You've got fixed costs, which you know are there, which are going to keep recurring time and time again. And then there are variable costs, which come very seasonally or they come under certain circumstances or when external factors come into picture or some unprecedented costs that come into picture, right? So that's how it is. And obviously, please understand another very important thing that if profit is equal to revenue minus cost, and most of the times when these profitability cases are given to you, they tell you that the profitability is going down. How do we get it up, right? Or how do we make sure that the profits are lucrative? So when you say that profitability is going down and you know profit is revenue minus cost, when you look at the formula of the equation itself, it's very simple to identify that the profit can go down only when the revenue is going down or the costs have gone up, right? It's only then that the profit can go down. Either the revenue has gone down or the costs have gone up, then the profit goes down, right? This I am giving you a hint. This formula, how to read it, and this concept. This is very important to solve any profitability case and even the case that I'm going to pose in front of you very soon. So, yes, that was about the different frameworks, the basics. And with that, we're going to go ahead and solve the case now. So, I'm going to come back and ask you one last time before we solve the case if you have any questions. Because if not, then we're going to move on to solving the case together. But if you have any questions, please feel free to, because now it's going to be your time to speak, not mine. So I'm going to give you a case study problem. I'll read it out 2 to 3 times for you. I will display it to you on the screen as well. After which I'll give you about 45 seconds to max a minute. And in that duration, you have to come up with your clarifying questions first, like I told you. First, ask your clarifying questions, get all your data that you need, then only you can solve a case. So you all can obviously raise your hands and ask your clarifying questions. I will answer it just like an interviewer. And then you have to take it forward after the clarifying questions, solve it together, right? So that's how we're going to do it. If you have any questions, guys, please let me know. And if you're ready to solve the case, then also let me know. What I'll do is then I'll obviously read out the case to you. Any questions that you have for whatever I've covered so far?
Ma'am, please explain the McKinsey's framework once again.
I'm sorry?
Ma'am, please explain the McKinsey's framework once again.
Sure. So I didn't explain the framework, but I'll obviously tell you that the McKinsey 7S framework is basically centered around the 7 S's, which is skill, style, staff, shared value, strategy, structure, and systems. Now, these are all factors that you will consider majorly when a company is trying to undergo some system or process change or people management, or there is a HR oriented or people oriented problem involved. Mostly this will not be applicable when you're talking about, let's say, pure marketing related questions or profitability problems and all. It doesn't come into picture there. So what you just do is, if you are given a question where you feel that, hey, to be able to solve this, I think I will need these seven factors or the 7S principle of McKinsey or the framework to be used, because I need to analyze all of these, the strategy, the shared value systems, and everything else that I told you. Then you use it. But mostly, as you can hear and understand also, shared value, skills, strategy, all of this is more people oriented systems, the structure a company is following, and it's very company oriented. So it doesn't come into picture mostly when you're given a problem which is pricing oriented or profitability oriented, and guesstimates not at all. Guesstimates anyways generally don't require any of the frameworks. It's all about doing proper mathematical calculation and having an eye for data. So it's just one of the principles that you can use. It's not like there's a hard and fast rule. This is where you can use it. That's where you can use it. In fact, it's one of the most least used frameworks. Yeah,
Okay, ma'am. Thanks.
welcome. Any other questions? Okay. I think what I'll do then is, let me share my screen and let's present the question. Okay. So quickly, I'm going to the screen and I'm going to share the question with you. Take a look at it. I will also repeat it 2 to 3 times, like I said. Then I'll give you a minute to think upon it, gather your clarifying questions or anything else that you need, and then we'll take it forward. So the problem statement is that our client is a 24 hours fitness center, okay, and they have been experiencing decreasing profits over the past year. How would you approach this problem and what recommendation would you make? Number one, please understand the easiest cases to identify are profitability and pricing cases. Trust me, because it's right there in the question. Like here, they've asked you decreasing profits. It's obvious that if the profits are decreasing and they're asking you, how would you approach this problem and what recommendation would you make, which is how will you make sure that they go up in their profits? It's a profitability question. Very simple to identify. Okay. Same as with pricing cases, also, they're very easy to identify. So the question is simple. You have a 24 hours fitness center who's our client. Since the past 1 year, they have been experiencing decreasing profits. Their profits have been going down since the past 1 year. What recommendations would you make? What approach would you follow to make sure that they're able to come back to the profits that they were making and become profitable? It's 5:48, right? I'll give you time till 5:49, exactly a minute. And yeah, that's when you all can start raising your hands and we'll start taking your clarifying questions and we'll solve it together. I'm giving you a minute, right?
Ma'am, your mic is muted.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm saying that I see a lot of hands raised already, but I think we should wait for others also to be able to first get a hold of the problem. So let's wait. I'll wait for another 30 seconds. Last 10 seconds, guys, and then we'll start taking the clarifying questions that people have to ask. Okay, Manya, I think you raised your hand first. Please unmute yourself. Go ahead.
Hello, good afternoon, ma'am.
Yeah, good evening.
So I've thought of one question that one clarifying question that we can begin with. Is this an industry-wise problem or is this an individual issue that this 24-hour fitness gym is
Yeah, very
facing?
good question. Very good question. Very good clarifying question to ask. So the it is not an industry-wide problem, Manya. It's specific to our client. Karthik, you have raised your hand.
Yes, ma'am. What's the nature of the business? Is it like an offline gym or is it like an online fitness coaching?
No, it's completely offline.
And can we know is it like number of stores? What are the number of stores? Is it like a franchisee business or just a single settlement?
I didn't get your question. Sorry.
Uh, is the offline gym is it like a single establishment
We're
or we
talking
are having
about
multiple
one fitness center. Yeah,
one fitness?
we're talking
Okay.
about one fitness center right now.
Okay.
Let's assume it in any typical metropolitan city in India. Delhi, Bombay, you can consider assume anything.
All
Yeah.
right.
Tanya, you've raised your hand.
Ma'am, I want to ask, is there any
Your voice is very feeble. I can't hear you. Okay. Gaurav, Gaurav, do you want to ask your question or should we move to the next person? Okay. Sonal,
Location for the fitness center.
like I said, you can just assume any particular metropolitan city. Let me tell you guys, the location is not where your mind should be. Ask the right questions. Brinda, you've raised your hand.
Yeah, I wanted to ask what is the growth framework like as of now? Like, is it all organic growth or inorganic? So far, how has it been?
By growth, you mean sales?
Yes. Like, has it been
So
organic, inorganic?
no, so I mean, it's been a mix of both. However, again, what is your question? Can you make it more direct? What is it that you are asking me? So I've told you the growth is a mix. It's like you can say it's a 60-40. 60% is organic, 40% is through any kind of paid advertisements or whatever it is that we're doing. But where are you getting at? What is your question? Do you want any kind of data from me? What is it?
Yes, a little bit specific, like how has the client been able to scale themselves up so far? A little bit of data from that side.
Okay, again, so I think Brinda, you were there. I mean, you there was something that you should have asked, but probably you're not able to frame that. So I'll give it to some more people. But you guys are not putting that question well, wherein you get that exact data point that you should. Anshul,
Yeah, I want to ask.
who's that? Rahul?
Yeah, yeah.
Gym. It's not that they just have the gym. They obviously have other services also. They are selling your what do you say, protein products and all of that also for people who are obviously coming to their gym. It's all there, right? So it's not like it's just the gym. There are other services as well.
I also
Oh,
wanted to ask a question
Yeah.
that what is the sales pattern like? That the sales has been decreasing or the sales has been constant or increasing?
Again, you so by sales you mean the memberships because that should be the right terminology. This is a fitness center. So are you asking me the number of memberships that they have had?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So I have certain data on that which I'll share. That's a valid question. So, like I said, guys, the words that you use are very important. Sales, I mean, instead of saying sales, because it's a fitness center, you will have to ask them specific data. That do you have any data, historical data around the trend that is being followed in terms of the number of memberships you're receiving on month or yearly basis for the past 3 years, let's say, or 5 years? That's a question you can ask. It's a very valid question, right? And here I have it, so I will share it. Just two more people I'm going to take who have not spoken before. So Anshul and Sehaj, you can ask your clarifying questions.
Yeah, ma'am. So we wanted to ask that is there any the profits are decreasing because of the cost of hiring trainers and the protein supplements as you mentioned, or because the memberships have fallen?
When did I say that? That
You
they've
said
hired trainers or protein supplements? I didn't make that statement. I said that they are also providing other products that are available in a gym because when you come to a gym, you also make dietary changes. So you obviously buy certain products and that's available. Protein powders and all is available in a gym. And I just said there are other services and classes going on as well. I never said their costs have gone up because of a product, because of a protein powder or anything. I don't think I said that.
okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Is there any new entry about the competition? Can you please tell about the competition and also the profit trend
Like what's been the past profits in the past year you talked about. So I would like to know the magnitude of that profit decline.
So the first question you asked was good. There is no market competition. You can consider it as null. That's not the cause. Second question you asked again, you can't directly ask Gaurav what's the profit. Please understand the formula is profitability, revenue is equal to profit minus revenue. That means uh, when you're talking about uh, when you talk about profitability and profits, revenue minus cost, sorry, it is itself dependent on two factors, revenue and cost, and you need to figure out is the problem at the revenue end or the cost end. You can't ask what are the profits like. That is what you have to figure out, right? So this is a direct question. Like I said, the question had to be asked in a different way, but the first one I answered. I think there's no competition, right? I'm taking one last clarifying question
Ma'am,
from Anav.
uh, ma'am, when you
Can
talked
I go
about data, I
next,
wanted to.
please? Just one.
Sorry.
Can I continue, ma'am?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah. So when you mentioned about data, I wanted to ask what's the median membership fee in that particular area, and what are the other gyms charging? And is your gym charging more than the median membership fee across all the gyms, or are you undercharging something like that?
No, so all the comparisons with respect to other gyms, what they are doing, whatever, it's all they're charging equivalent to what other gyms are charging. There's no problem with the rates. In fact, our customers are very satisfied with the service as well. That's the most recent update that we have got. That our 24-hour fitness center client, their customers are extremely satisfied with the service, and they're not looking at going to any other competition as well.
Ma'am, can I ask?
Yes, Manya, go ahead.
So, ma'am, is this a revenue side problem or a cost side problem? Because it's not an
Wrong
industry-wise
question to
issue,
ask.
so it is.
Wrong question to ask. Like I said, profitability is equal to revenue minus cost. You cannot ask me is the problem at the revenue or the cost side. That's exactly what you're solving for. Your role is exactly that, to identify is the problem at the revenue side or the cost side. If I tell you that, then you can't solve the case. Nitish, Gaba, I think he raised his hand. There was some other girl who was trying to, I don't know, I couldn't. Guys, please raise your hand because that's what I can see. Then I can give
Yes,
you a
ma'am.
chance.
Good evening.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Ma'am,
Direct conclusion without me giving you any data. Can I have a logical
ma'am,
backing?
because as you said, there is no competitions, customers are satisfied, so I don't think it will create any revenue side problem as customers are not leaving. So there might be an increase in cost.
I'd like to
You
contradict this.
can't solve a case that way, by the way, just to let you know, because that means that within 2 minutes you'll solve the case and just tell him that the problem is at the cost side and leave. That won't work. So a case is to be solved very methodologically, and you need to break down everything and give reasoning. I've not even given you any data points at this point, and unfortunately, we're also short on time, and we need to solve the case. So I won't take any more clarifying questions, or we'll start solving the case together. So I've answered most of your clarifying questions. With that, I'm going to present some data in front of you that I can give you. And then whoever wants to obviously take a chance, any one of you only, because this is getting a little hotchpotched and stuff. So what I'm going to do is any one of you will be, I'll give you a chance to obviously logically tell me that this is why you're saying this, not tell me problem is at cost side and end it. I know you all can go on the internet and get to know in a second, right? We're all in the internet era. That's not the point. I want to understand your logic, right? So let me go to, okay. First thing first, did any of you try to understand when you talk about, like I said, in a profitability case, what really happens is either the problem is at the cost side or it is at the revenue side. None of you have mentioned anything or tried to ask me anything to understand where the problem is, right? So first thing I want to know is, where do you think does the major revenue for any 24-hour fitness center come from? Where does it come from?
The subscriptions.
Membership.
Subscriptions? Memberships. Okay. Correct. And what could be the other alternative or secondary sources of revenue other than the memberships for a gym?
Selling of supplements
Anything else? That's one.
and personal trainers.
How is personal trainers a source of income? That's a part of the gym and memberships, sir. How is the gym earning? Apart from the memberships and the supplements that they sell, how is a fitness center or a gym earning? So I don't know if you've noticed, and a lot of gyms, sorry.
I guess maybe some Zumba classes or similar fitness exercises classes going on
Yeah,
simultaneously, and trainer
correct.
over there
So
paying.
most of the gyms that you go to today, you don't just have, you have a Zumba class, you have a Pilates class, you have an aerobic class, and a lot of jazzy stuff that happens. And then you have different trainers to take those classes because they always want add-ons. That's another revenue source for them. Okay, these are majorly the three ones, but the main one, as you all rightly pointed out, is the memberships, right? The gym members who are signing up to the gym and they pay like a monthly, or generally monthly is very rare. People don't go for it because it's very high. That's how they price it. Either quarterly or yearly is what majority of the people go with. Although it's an enthusiasm that we'll go to the gym every day, no one ends up going there. But people generally take a yearly, I would say package, so to say. At least safely, you can say roughly 80% of them do. Now, how do you calculate that revenue? I'll just share my screen because you need to be able to, and trust me, guys, you can't directly, like I said, like one of you did, just say that problem is at cost side. That's not how it works. You have to justify how problem is at cost side. You have to first tell what's at the revenue side, what formula you're using, talk about all of this that we discussed, then go to the conclusion. It's a 30 to 45-minute interview. So profit is revenue minus cost. If profits are decreasing, like we know, either the revenue has gone down or the costs have gone up. Simple, right? I stated this before also. I gave you a hint, think on these lines. I told you either problem is on revenue or cost side, start thinking like that. So now the revenue stream for any typical fitness center is the average number of monthly members signing up into the monthly rate that they are paying into 12. We are assuming we are only considering the monthly memberships because the reality is majority of them are an yearly one. This assumption you're making, you have to communicate it to your interview. Now on the cost side, for a 24-hour fitness center, what will be the fixed costs? The rent that they pay, the salaries that they pay out to their employees, the workout equipment, maintenance cost, and all of that is fixed that they need to pay. Variable costs. A lot of people come there. A lot of gyms have got saunas and hot baths and God knows what not. So a lot of people also take a shower there only. So the laundry and cleaning can be an extra cost you might have to pay for. Variable cost. Any other amenities and hourly fitness instructors like the Zumba class, Pilates class, all of that we already spoke about. Those can be variable costs. So first step is identify these things that for my client, for the industry, for the problem, what does the revenue formula look like? What is the cost looking like? What is the fixed cost like? What is the variable cost like for my client? After which, the next thing you will move down to is, this was asked by Akshat. Uh, this is the historical data that I'm showing you for the average number of active members monthly in the year 2017, 18, and 19, assuming we are in 2020 right now. This is the rate of the previous 3 years, and the average monthly rate that they are, basically paying. The members are paying, and the number of members who are coming in. Now, looking at this revenue data from the past 3 years, guys, any conclusions? What do you draw? Any conclusion that you draw from this data? Anybody would like to quickly let me know?
And the
What are
number of
your
members, the number of memberships have been consistently increasing, but the price of membership was the decrease in the 2019 compared to 2018.
If you actually look at the figures, so you've got 420 members in 2017, then 490, then 520, and the average rate is almost the same. If you remove an average of 35, 33, 30, it's going to be almost like 30 or between 30 to 33. So to be very honest, the monthly rates that they're paying have not wavered a lot. Do you see any exponential rise? Actually, even in the number of members, please understand these are yearly figures. It's not a big jump going from 420 to 490 and 490 to 520. I don't think there are spikes. My question is, do you see any drastic change either in the monthly members or in the rates that they're getting paid?
No, ma'am.
Correct. That is how you will conclude that the problem is not at the revenue side, not in thin air that there's no problem at the revenue side, right? When you get this data. So safely looking at this, you can now make a conclusion very strongly that you can assume that the There must have, obviously, you've understood that you can now turn your attention to costs as they may have been increasing because there's not a lot of spiked up change in the historical data when it comes to your revenue side. So let's go to cost now. For cost also, you should ideally ask for historical data because you ask for historical data for, for revenue as well. So here it is for the same for the past 3 years. Here is the monthly rent that our fitness center is paying, and here is the personnel cost, which is the employee cost, the salaries that they're giving to their employees every month. Please closely look at this data and tell me what do you observe now. And please back it up with some reasoning. Okay. Anybody who wants to quickly let me know what have you observed?
There is an increasing trend in the cost.
What do you mean by increasing trend? Would you like to give it some more weightage, like some volume? What are you exactly referring to? Yeah.
So in 2017, like it was 2000 for the personal, but now it is more than double in 2019.
Correct. So you can see that obviously from 17 to 18, it just went, it had gone up by $1,000, right? But then it's gone up by another $5,000. And between these 2 years, if you see, it's gone up more than 2 times. Any observations on the rent side by anybody? Anyone?
Ma'am, I don't think rent is playing a major role in this case study since it is increasing in a constant rate of 1,000 for the year to year. So I think we should more focus on the personal's increase that is more than the double of 2017 2019. So
Yeah.
I think
Correct. So obviously, it's pretty obvious that doesn't seem like very problematic. I mean, the rent every year is just increasing by like $1,000. That's pretty normal. It's supposed to happen. There's inflation. It's going to happen. So obviously, what you get to know now is that you see that the rent and the personals have both been increasing, but the personal cost is especially ballooned up, right, over the past few years. So you need to find out what's driving this big jump. Now, if you dig deeper into the personal cost bucket, you'll have to think about the industry a little. Now, in any 24-hour fitness center, you'll have two types of personals or employees, full-time and hourly. Okay. Now, at the gym, there are three types of customers: those who will sign up and never go to the gym, right? Those who will go and do their own workout, which is they won't opt for a personal trainer. And then there's a third category who will go for proper instructor-led classes with a dietitian and a personal trainer and all of that. Okay. Now, imagine, just do an hypothesis, take a hypothetical situation wherein what if the normal ratio of these customer segments, these three categories has shifted over the past few years and this is somehow leading to a higher cost? Just a assumption. So you could have asked for some data also around the kind of workout classes that are being held per month, the number of classes. Now, here is the data for you, data table for you of the, that might not be the case. Let's see. That might not be the case. Let's see. Now, as you know, what you will realize, and this is what your interviewer will tell you, it turns out that your gym had been offering member classes for free, included within their monthly package or the monthly rate they were paying. Yet, as they gained popularity and that added more to the schedule, that is, more and more people were coming to the gym, very satisfied. They got a lot of crowd from their competitors also. But now, because there are more people to cater to, they had to keep hourly instructors because they're offering these free, like let's say Zumba or dance classes, in addition to the gym package. Please understand. So they are not going to keep full-time employees for it. They have hourly instructors on a payroll, which is increasing the personal cost. So despite attracting more customers in their packed schedule, they haven't increased the prices of their membership rate to account for this higher cost. So by this point, we've obviously figured that the higher costs have been driving the decrease in profitability. The rent and the personnel costs have increased by 5K per month. That is from the tables that we saw between 2017 to 19. However, the revenues only increased by 4,560. They simply multiplied the number of members monthly into the monthly rate from that table. Alternatively, what they can probably do is they should change the pricing structure to lower the fees of using the equipment, maybe, but they should charge some price for these extra classes that they're attending within their membership fee. This is one way that they can prevent losing customers that don't attend the classes. Another thing that they can do is the hourly instructors that they have, right? They can try and transition them or convert some of them into full-time employees. Because when they do that, your costs relatively go down because you're not paying on an hourly basis. You don't even know if the 15 classes they're holding in a month, all the people are coming or not. So many people just miss the classes, but whether they're two people or 30, you have to pay that hourly amount to the instructor. So the gym is at a loss, right? Net net. So they should go for try to transition them to full-time employees or find someone who can play a multi-facet role. Or employees who are also okay with doing the desk job or being at the reception, and maybe when there's nobody, they can also act as a trainer. So a multi-skilled person that will also be more affordable for the gym at this point. Any other suggestions that anybody wants to give? What do you think? What else can they do to tackle this problem other than the two things that we spoke about? Do you think there is something else that they can do to make sure that their profitability is back up again? Any other suggestions anyone would like to give? Because there is no right or no only way to solve a case. The way you solve a case, the way I solve a case will be very different. And there are multiple ways to solve any case. Please understand that. So there's no right or wrong. Any other suggestions anybody wants to give? Okay. Now let's understand the conclusion then. What we understand from this problem is, so there was a gym which was offering free classes, right? Because of which more customers came in, because of which more instructors were needed, and they had to be paid higher salaries, which increased their costs, and that led to dipping profits, right? So that's ultimately what the problem was and the root cause was, and that's how we went about it by asking the right clarifying questions and coming to this conclusion. So I think with that, we're done with the session, and I can open the floor for any kind of questions that you want to ask me. I hope that it was interactive. I wanted it to be very interactive, where all of you are participative, and I tried to, let as many people take part in the case solving process. But if you have any other questions for me, I'm happy to answer them. So I think Aditi and Akshat, if they have any questions, you can maybe we can take them up, or else I'm obviously done with my part of the session.
Sure, ma'am.
I think just one question from Shrajan.
Yeah.
Yeah, ma'am, I wanted to ask that, like, for example, I'm a full-time graduate, and instead of getting for a full-time job at consulting, I wanted to get an experience for internship, but I usually don't see many openings or paths. Like, what should be my approach for that?
Yeah, the reality is you don't find a lot of consulting internships, and even if you do, you generally can only get them on campus because any consulting firm would prefer taking like a student from a campus where they have these tie-ups with your colleges and get them trained first. That's how I got my job as well. I was first a trainee, then I became an analyst, then an associate consultant in 2 years. So I think that's that. But I see a lot of startups today hiring for consulting roles, not your typical management consulting roles, but you do have a lot of startups who are hiring growth strategy interns, growth marketing interns, and it's more or less very similar to strategy consulting. So at least you get some flavor or exposure to consulting. I see a lot of HR consultants being hired also. I think don't concentrate on the company, don't go with the name, go with the role, because a lot of startups are hiring interns in the consulting space now. So look around LinkedIn, there are a lot of opportunities there.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, welcome. Brinda, I think you have a question.
Yes, ma'am. So even I have recently graduated as well, and I want to know what is your take on off-campus hiring for entry-level consulting roles, and how do you think, like, what do you think my approach should be?
Yeah, I think for any kind of entry level role at any company, not just a consulting firm, your resume is something that is going to make or break your chances of getting that job. So, firstly, please make sure that you have a consulting relevant resume in place with the right keywords. It's well made, it's ATS compliant, because that's the first interface that goes through a robot, and then you get a chance to interview, right? Apart from that, I think just make sure that you've done enough practice in terms of your cases. Build on your problem solving and communication skills. Know your basic Excel and PowerPoint, not just basic, I would say at least intermediate level. These things might seem very trivial, but to get into a consulting firm and get hired at an entry level, which is an analyst role, these are the most basic things they look at: problem solving skills, communication skills, presentation skills, and knowing your Microsoft Excel and PowerPoint. This is the basic stuff that you should know. So I would say try and practice as many cases as possible. Apart from that, make a good resume. And yes, maybe practice a little bit in terms of mock interviews for your behavioral and fit interview rounds, where they're going to put you into situational, they're going to put you into, they're going to ask you situational questions. That's pretty much it, whether it's off campus or it's on campus. The only difference is the resume screening that becomes problematic off campus because that happens through a bot. So, yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, welcome. Sonal?
Yes, ma'am. So I just wanted to see your last slide once again, the one which had conclusion.
Sure. I just closed the PPT. Give me a second. Okay. Also, if you guys have any other questions, please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm very active there. But unfortunately, for now, this is the last question that I could take because after I have another session, guys, with another college right after this. But I will quickly show you my presentation last slide. Give me a second. I'm available on LinkedIn. Feel free to reach out. And I'm very approachable there. So you can ask your questions. How to ace cases. Just a second. Is my screen visible to all of you?
No, ma'am, actually. Yeah, it's visible now.
Okay, it's loading. Give me 1 second. I'll just quickly take you to the last slide. Yeah. I hope you were able to check it out now. That's it. Thank you so much, everyone. I hope you found the session insightful and learned a thing or two. And thank you so much for having me. Yeah.
And thank you so much, ma'am. And we have a small token of gratitude from our end.
Okay. Oh, that's very sweet. Thank you so much. I'll take a picture of it.
Yes, ma'am. I'll share it with you also.
Sure.
Your professionalism, confidence, and enthusiasm was oozing and filled us with a wave to learn something new, which we won't forget.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thanks, Akshat, for having me. Thanks to the entire team for having me. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, on that note, thank you so much everyone for attending day 5. We'll be meeting tomorrow at same time for the last day of our bootcamp. Thank you so much.
And we hope that it was a value add on for each one of you and looking forward for the same enthusiasm tomorrow as well. Thank you so much, everyone. Goodbye and have a very good evening.